Since his arrest and mysterious death in 2019, the case of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and his intricate web of deception, predation, and lies has continued to baffle authorities and the public alike. In July 2020, the arrest of his longtime associate girlfriend, British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, offered a much-needed chance to move forward with the efforts to obtain justice for the countless underage female victims who suffered at the hands of the couple. This is the long road to justice, the case against Ghislaine Maxwell. In one of the highest profile cases in the wake of the Me Too movement, after a month-long trial in December of 2021, Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty of helping the globe-trotting investor sexually abuse teenage girls. From the first day of the trial, which began in November of 2021, jurors heard emotional and explicit testimony from 4 women, each of whom portrayed Maxwell's behavior as predatory and central to the crimes committed against them by Epstein. While Maxwell's conviction seemed to seal the British socialite's fall from grace, the verdict became clouded when a juror, a man known as juror number 50, revealed that he had incorrectly answered the pretrial questionnaire when asked if he had any history of sexual abuse. Maxwell's bid to overturn her conviction was denied by the Manhattan judge presiding over the case, who concluded that the mistake was not deliberate, and the court was confident that Juror 50 had served as a fair and impartial juror. With the application for a new trial now dismissed, there is anticipation that there will be testimony from many other women who were not able to be heard at the trial. One of the women who witnessed firsthand the twisted and chilling partnership between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell is Teresa Helm. She sat down with us exclusively to talk about her encounter. So the trial of the socialite, the disgraced socialite, Ghislaine Maxwell, concluded. I know you were at the courthouse for the first week of this trial. What was it like to look Maxwell in the eyes?
Well, you know, I did. I looked at her straight in the eyes for quite a while as she was walking from her holding room while I was in the courtroom. And for those moments, eye to eye to her, it was as though everything just fell away around us, you know, and I really felt like it was just her and I in the room. And that for me was a very powerful moment. Part of me going there and feeling the need to be there throughout the court, you know, proceedings and her trial was for me to really continue to gain back my power.
Sure.
So that was an essential power grab for me.
Yeah, so as far removed as you might be, your life here down in Florida now, that verdict still meant something to you.
Oh, this has been an ongoing, you know, this has happened, this is something that has happened a long time ago for me, you know, in particular. And I don't know how many times throughout the last nearly 2 decades now that I have relived, you know, and recounted the story in my own mind. So this is very far from something, you know, long ago in the past.
Do you remember how you felt when you heard the verdict? Where were you?
Well, I was actually at the grocery store here in Florida, and I was there with my, you know, 7-year-old daughter, and I had really been overwhelmed that day with a lot of different emotions about when is this verdict coming, what's it going to be. You know, it did seem like it was taking a while. I was kind of fluctuating between like a bit of anxiety and just a little bit of numbness to the situation of waiting for the verdict. And, you know, I had this kind of feeling to check my phone at the grocery store. So I do, and I see these headlines, you know, verdict is in, and I'm trying to find the verdict. What is it? And
that gut feeling told you.
Yes, absolutely. So I checked my phone right there, and I couldn't find the verdict. What are the results? You know, I'm sitting here trying to find that. And then my amazing lawyer, Sigrid McCauley, called me right then and there. And there I was, you know, in the spice aisle of Whole Foods, crying and laughing with my lawyer on the phone.
Teresa, you shared before that your story of abuse started way before at the hands of Epstein and Maxwell. You were a young girl, your most vulnerable years, and you were abused by a family member. Just like many victims of these monstrous acts, you deprived yourself of any help, you suppressed your emotions, and for almost 2 decades you suffered in silence, culminating, entering into Epstein and Maxwell's dark world. Teresa, who were you? Can you set the scenario for us? Who were you back then? What city did you live in?
Yeah.
And what was the nature of that initial meeting you had with Maxwell?
So then at the time I was 22 years old. I had just moved to Los Angeles, California from Dayton, Ohio. I was in massage therapy school in Ohio, and I had a bit of an experience in California with a friend and her family for a quick visit. And, I went there once and decided this is where I want to be. I want to be near the palm trees and the ocean.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to take my massage therapy career to, the sky was the limit, or
Right.
there were no limits
Sure.
to where I saw my career going. So I moved out there and continued on with school there. And, there were a few people that I met through the school, that essentially I went down the path of then meeting Ghislaine by being flown from Los Angeles to New York City.
Right.
And upon meeting Ghislaine, there I am thinking, I'm there for this interview with this woman who is successful and well-educated. When I met her, she was very polite and kind, well-spoken, beautiful home, so.
No red flags at all.
There were no red flags because, that's just not the way, it's what she was doing. She was grooming me. And the thing about being groomed is there has to be a successful grooming process.
She was essential to the operation.
She orchestrated it.
Yeah.
She absolutely facilitated, orchestrated, to the point where I felt so comfortable with this woman and felt so safe in her presence that not only did I feel like I deserved the job and to travel with her throughout, in the entire world like I was told, I felt so safe and confident in her, in my time spent with her, that I then walked myself to the home of a predator. I walked myself there.
The incredible proposal turns indecent when we come back. So you're now in the infamous New York City townhouse of Jeffrey Epstein for the first time. And this is where your assault occurred.
Right.
To the degree that you're comfortable, can you share with us any details of the nature of the attack that day?
Well, so it really began during a foot massage, and that quickly turned into very inappropriate behavior from him, and his foot very inappropriately being pressed up against parts of my body. And after that, then there was additional abuse in the hallway after I decided that I needed to get out of there.
Right.
So I leave the room, and he assaulted me yet again in the hallway, by first grabbing me, and I froze. I didn't know what to do. So
you tried to escape.
I did.
You tried to leave. Walk us through that day. Did you just run out of there? Did you call the authorities? Did you just pretend nothing happened?
I left there, and something that he had said to me as I was leaving was, "Don't do anything that I would not do." And that to me was, I took that as a direct threat based off of what I had just experienced with him. And I did not tell anyone. I flew back to Los Angeles the next day, and I did not tell anyone about what had happened to me there. And for me, the shame was so overwhelming. It was nearly crippling to me.
Did Epstein and Maxwell ever try to contact you after that?
I received an email after that, and it was from one of Epstein's assistants, Kimberly Espinoza.
We know the name.
Yes, so she emailed me thanking me for coming out and letting me know that I was still being considered for the position and that I would hear back again. And even that email alone was just a huge mind twist.
Of course.
Because of everything that it's like they just pretend that it's so normal, like nothing happened. And that was the last bit of communication, because I did not respond to that email, and then I did not receive anything after that.
Teresa, what do you think was the difference between you and some of the other girls that stayed?
I don't know, other than there must have been survival instincts that, number one, got me up off the couch to leave the room, that got me, from the hallway down the stairs and out the door. Why didn't I respond to that email? I saw, there was this vision of what I could have had, I suppose. I don't really know how to explain it. I do know that, with other survivors, there were instances where things were so difficult and tough for them that being with Epstein and Maxwell was actually better.
I want to go back to 2019. So in 2019, the world finds out that Jeffrey Epstein was charged with conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking. Are you following him at this point? Are you only aware of his whereabouts now because he's been arrested, or where are you at?
So in 2019, I was not aware of who exactly, this is going to sound funny, but I was not aware who Epstein was. When I met him, I knew him as Jeffrey and Jeffrey only. So for 17 years, in my mind, it's only Jeffrey. And there was a morning that I plugged my phone in, and there was a headline that popped up because it had swiped to the news. And the headline read, Epstein found in jail cell in fetal position. And for a quick moment, I thought to myself, wow, I'm full of compassion for this grown man as I envision a grown man curled up in the fetal position. And I set my phone down and walk away, and just something stopped me. I was like, you have got to go back and look at that. And I went back and I clicked on that headline, and the moment I clicked on that headline and it opened, there his face was in that Harvard sweatshirt, that picture. And I cannot find the words to describe to this day what I felt. I mean, I was shocked is not the word. It's just so far beyond shocked. And then I realized who Jeffrey Epstein was.
The shock that Teresa experienced has been echoed multiple times, not only from Epstein and Maxwell's sexual abuse victims, but also others that came into their employ. Rasmus Alacqua was a sharp-looking, sharp-minded 24-year-old from Sweden who lived with Miss Maxwell and her post-Epstein boyfriend in their New York City luxury townhouse. His insights when we come back. Rasmus, what were your main assignments for Miss Maxwell during your time there?
Well, like you said, my main assignment was walking one of her dogs called Nemo. And so that was the only thing that was scheduled. I always walked the dog, I think 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so that was like my only, yeah, scheduled assignment. And also getting her coffee in the morning. That was the first thing I did. Other than that, small things would pop up, like go and buy this, or often buy stuff like buy these scented candles or buy me food. So it was tasks anybody could have done.
At the time, Rasmus, you did not know who Miss Maxwell was. You did not know of her connection to the late Jeffrey Epstein, but you did get more than a glimpse of her world. Did you ever wonder how she attained such a lifestyle? Did you ever question who she was?
I think I Googled her once just because I wanted to show, I think, my mom, like who she was. Because my mom, of course, asked me, like who is this woman you're working for? So I think I Googled her once and read that her riches came from her dad. So at the time, just some rich socialite in New York. That's what I thought for a long time.
So here you have this rich socialite, this powerful woman, her then boyfriend at the time, who you met. He sat you down with Ghislaine and said to you, "This is a very powerful woman." And he gave you a sort of warning back then. What was that like?
They built a mystique around her. Her boyfriend at the time, Scott, I told before, he sat me down in Central Park and told me, "This is a very important lady. You can never let anybody come over, and you can never tell who she is." And I always had that in the back of my mind too.
Now, on one occasion, you told me previously Maxwell became enraged after you allowed a delivery man to enter her home.
Me opening the door to a delivery guy, I thought that's one I should be doing that. And then I let him into like the pantry, or there was still another door before you came into the whole townhouse. And I thought, well, it's my job to pick up the package. I think she even said, "Can you open the door?" And honestly, even though I thought the reaction at the time was over exaggerated, the fact was still there that she had the power to send me home, and all I wanted to do was stay. So, but when I've been talking about this incident just the past couple of weeks, I've been thinking, well, it's just really weird that she said, well, he could have been anyone. He could have wanted to kill me or something.
Although Rasmus saw Maxwell as a well-bred and pampered socialite, 3 years since he left New York, he was not entirely shocked to see the media coverage of the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein and the connection of his former employer to the late billionaire pedophile. So you've said that when you learned of who you had been working for and what she was being accused of, you actually weren't that surprised. Why is that?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I think it was like a feeling, it makes sense. It makes sense based on her personality, but also I think what she was capable to do. And I think what people in that power position do for pleasure. I really, really think so. If you have everything you could have asked and you're like drawn to power and have a bit of evil in you, I think that's where you're drawn to doing those things. I mean, so yeah, I wasn't surprised. It's another world these people are living in, and I got to see a glimpse of it. So it's scary to think what's going on. It's really scary.
More than 1 year after her capture in New Hampshire, fugitive socialite Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial came to an end. After 5 days of deliberation, a guilty verdict on 5 of the 6 counts brought against her was reached and read to an expressionless Maxwell. Throughout the trial, prosecutors called 24 witnesses, including 4 female victims, ex-staffers, personal assistants, housekeepers, his longtime pilot, and a false memory expert to the stand. This all over the course of 10 days of testimony. The high-profile defense team argued that in light of Epstein's prison suicide, Maxwell was being made a scapegoat for his crimes. Prosecutors maintained that Maxwell made her own choices and did whatever it took to keep Epstein happy, including recruiting, grooming, and actually engaging in sexual activities with girls as young as just 14 years old. By the end of the trial, the explicit testimony left little doubt that Ghislaine Maxwell was a woman who knew exactly what she had to do to maintain the gilded lifestyle to which she had become accustomed. A lifestyle which included many other prominent, powerful, and up until now, protected men. More when we return. When we think about who would mastermind such a large sex trafficking operation, our natural inclination is to think of a male or males behind it all.
Sure.
The least inclination is to think of a well-educated, well-mannered female socialite.
Right.
Were you ever worried that Gayleen's gender would affect the prosecution's case?
Okay, number one, we do not assume or expect that it's going to be a woman, which is one of the biggest tools and factors that she had to her benefit.
Of course.
So considering that, then you consider all the evidence though, and how many women have, found the courage to come forward to state the fact that what Ghislaine, the role that she played in it. I don't feel that I think this is a really good instance where we can no longer assume that it's only men, because it's clearly not, and she's a really,
Well, this certainly, of course, sets a precedent now for
Yes.
how these cases will be tried, and that's not just in this country, that's going to be across the world. Teresa, there were obviously so many high-profile, powerful people, celebrities, politicians involved in this. Now that the verdict has come out, it's a guilty verdict, Maxwell herself has said that she would possibly start naming some of those names, some of those people that were involved in this. Do you think that she'll talk, and do you know of any of these other men or women that were a party to this?
I do know, just for the fact that this is pretty much out in the open now, you have Jean-Luc Brunel, Peter Nygard, these are men that were tied into the Epstein-Maxwell world, and fortunately, they are hopefully continue to be held accountable. To the people that have been seen, on the flight logs, it would seem as though there's a lot of reason to be concerned that they're going to be questioned, and if they should be questioned, they should be, because Epstein and Maxwell facilitated a lot, and then there were certainly a lot of participants, and there were a lot of co-conspirators.
Until now, no one had dared to expose royals such as Prince Andrew, money moguls such as Leon Black, or former presidents such as Bill Clinton as morally devoid, ruthless predators. While no other prominent figure has been charged with crimes related to Epstein to date, Maxwell's conviction opens up the prospects of a greater reckoning. Far from the palaces and yachts she once inhabited, Ghislaine Maxwell is currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, where she has been in isolation for almost 2 years. Maxwell and her usually present but quiet siblings have voiced concerns about the treatment and conditions at the jail. Sentencing is scheduled for June 28th, and many who have been following the case intently have intriguingly suggested that a 60-year-old who is facing up to 65 years in prison has little reason left not to talk. Currently, not one man or woman who carried out the abuse has subsequently been charged. There is no evidence of an active police investigation, leaving us left to ask, why might that be? Why are we protecting predators? And will the essentially lifelong sentence be the tipping point for Maxwell? While her attorneys have publicly stated that they are already strategizing an appeal, those strategy sessions might include talks about the benefits of laying open Maxwell's little black book. After all, the former socialite had to traffic these girls to someone. So while she has borne the brunt of the investigation, while a lot of other people have skated, that larger network of prominent people could finally be revealed. If justice is truly to be done, the verdict against Miss Maxwell cannot be the last word. As for many, the story is far from over. As far as the victims and people who suffered the most, Maxwell did not act alone. And their hope is that this conviction is only the first step in holding everyone accountable. For the road to justice has been far too long. I'm Caitlin Sinclair. Thank you for watching this episode of OAN Investigates. Don't forget to tune in every Saturday and Sunday for the latest episode. I'll see you next time.